TNA Wrestling crossed the line again with their first show since the Rebellion pay-per-view, and we're going to review it right now on the channel. Now, TNA this week obviously started off with a lot of recaps from Rebellion, and after that, Nick Nemeth comes out and basically says he doesn't know what to do. He also says that he's broken, and those of you that know what happened at Rebellion will know the word broken can mean only one thing. Broken Matt Hardy then comes out and he said he had a premonition. He also shows footage of Moose pinning Nick Nemeth at Rebellion with the shoulder up. And he did say it didn't look like an official pinfall to him. Out come Moose and the system. And they say that Matt Hardy thinks he's the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. And he can see why they suck. Moose also said this isn't football and he can't change the play. At this point, Nick Nemeth then says, look, get in the ring and stare to their face. Eddie Edwards says he sounds pathetic, and then that sets up the match later on between Eddie Edwards and Nick Nemeth. A really strong opener there, a really strong opening segment. Great recapping everything from the last, from Rebellion, and setting up a great match for later on with Eddie Edwards against Nick Nemeth. And funnily enough, one of the comments on this, I think Eddie Edwards says that Nick Nemeth wanted to be the next Kurt Angle, but he can't even be the next Eric Angle, which was quite funny, to be fair. They went backstage and Mustafa Ali's there with the good hands and Santino Marella with the ballot box. Mustafa Ali praises democracy in TNA, and Jordan Grace then drops hers and asks Santino if she can talk to him. Interesting. Promo for Under Siege airs. That is the next one. I'm looking forward to that. When that starts, I think it's in May, in a couple of weeks' time, actually 3 or 4 weeks' time. They then cut to some more highlights where we saw PCO and Sami Callihan appear when Jordan Grace beat Steph Galanda, retaining the Knockouts Championship. And at this point, Jordan Grace then starts talking about the match, and she's glad that she had the PCO's help at the back of her, at the upper sleeve, basically. And then next week, she's talking about her match next week against Mayumu Namashita. God, these Japanese names. But she's a fighting champion, and she will defend the Knockouts World title next week against Yamashita. And that will be fantastic. At that point, Miyayu comes out and says that she will take the title. Very, very interesting. So quite a promo-heavy start to TNA this week, but actually not such a bad thing. They've done a good thing of recapping. They've done a good thing of setting the stage ready for the matches tonight and next week. Straight into match one, which was Mylon Reed versus the debuting or the returning Mike Santana. Those of you that know, he obviously was in TNA. He went to AEW, left AEW, and is now back with TNA. He re-debuted at Rebellion. It really wasn't much of a match. I mean, Myron Reed tries to hit a cutter onto the entranceway, but he got caught. He hit the rolling buck 50. He throws him back in, hits a senton onto the remaining members of the Rascals, and then he hits STB on Myron Reed for the win. It was as simple as that. After the match, Macklin's music hit, and he orders the Rascals to get into the ring. The four of them surround him. The four of them surround the ring, and Macklin gets in the ring, but the Rascals bail on him. As Santana tries to hit the STB on Macklin, Macklin gets out of the ring. Very interesting there how the Rascals have seemingly turned their back on Macklin. We do know the good news is that Macklin has re-signed with TNA. I think I mentioned this last week on the review. It may have even been on the Rebellion review. Massive, massive, massive news that is for TNA. A great pickup, or even a pickup, a great retention of a great, great talent. Speaking of great talents, that moves to Steph Galanda. She was backstage with Con, and what happened at being was a Las Vegas screw job. She tells Jordan and Grace to bring her boyfriend PCO, and they will have a tag match at Under Siege. So we're getting Steph Galanda and Con versus Jordan Grace and PCO at Under Siege, which could be interesting. That one, if they're going to maybe have a stipulation to that, it's kind of reigniting that feud from Monsters Ball. We've still got Steph Galanda, who's not actually signed from TNA from what we know, but she's working on a per appearance deal. I really hope that, that turns into a permanent fixture, having Steph Galanda on our television week in, week out, Impact Wrestling. Now, Josh Alexander come out. We knew we'd hear from him. That was announced before the show. He says that his heart bleeds for the TNA. And he showed at Rebellion when he beat Hammerstone and come out the last man standing. But he did say there's one thing that he hasn't been called in a long time. That's TNA World Champion. That brought out Kazarian, and he said that he wins one match and he thinks he's the #1 contender. He said he also won at Rebellion, and he beat a TNA OG in a Full Metal Mayhem. Basically saying if anyone qualifies to be the #1 contender, it's him. Alexander then counters that and says, how about let's have a #1 contenders match? Kazarian said his arm was injured after the match, and Josh said his last man standing moment, which was brutal, but he isn't moaning. But Kazarian basically doesn't work for him, brother. And a referee enters the ring, and Jay Chung announces that the match has been made official. And it did happen. Josh Alexander versus Kazarian in a really good match. I really enjoyed this. This was, again, the veteran of Kazarian, Alexander, that can pretty much wrestle in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't matter who he's in the ring with. Josh Alexander can work a match with pretty much anyone, and I absolutely love it. There was some really good back and forth action on here, and eventually Eric Young come out at the end because Kazarian got a steel chair. Eric Young took the steel chair for him. Kazarian feigns an injury. The referee ejects Young from the from ringside. However, the ankle lock on Kazarian, who tapped, and that means that Josh Alexander is now the #1 contender for the World Heavyweight Championship at TNA, and potentially a showdown with Moose is on the horizon. That will be an absolute show-stealing match for sure. Backstage at this point, Jake Summink was talking to Santino Marella, who basically said he can't challenge for the X Division title anymore, which is a real shame. Obviously, Jake Summink come out a bit short at Rebellion against Mustafa Ali. Hammerstone comes in at this point and demands to talk with Santino. Something was sticking up for Santino at this point and told him to show him some respect. Hammerstone then shoved something, and Santino books them in a match at Under Siege. Jake something and Hammerstone Under Siege. Wow. That match, you're already looking at this card and you're thinking, banger, banger, banger. How on earth can they top all this? I'm sure they will. And we'll find out in the weeks to come as we head into Under Siege. First Class is now out here. Rich Swann and AJ Francis. They say Joe Hendry has done nothing but devalue their name, but after the arse whooping he got, he's going to be putting some respect on the name of First Class. And Joe Hendry comes and says he's not here to fight because at Rebellion, Rich Swann beat him and he suffered a very serious groin injury. He owes an apology and he's going to do it in the ring next week. So that is going to be very, very interesting next week. Will he apologize? Will Joe Hendry apologize? I don't know. I really don't know. Ash by Elegance was next. Could she make it 4-0 against Xia Brookside? The answer to that was no. Xia Brookside beat Ash by Elegance in quite a quick match, to be fair. She went to the top rope, hit a crossbody for 2. Ash got Brookside in the Simon's carry, but Xia gets out of it. Ash kicks her and Xia gets out of the ring. George Iceman gives her the brass knuck, but the referee actually caught her with the brass knucks, and Xia Brookside rolled her up for the win. So Ash by Elegance is now 3-1. Xia Brookside continues her impressive run in TNA. And again, like we said before, these two have got a nice little feud going. Ash is getting better and better because we're seeing her week in, week out. The character's developing. She plays the character so well, and that's the thing. Like, we need to see this. What we hadn't seen before from her and AJ Francis is the character coming out, them being there week in, week out and developing, growing in the ring. And we're finally getting to see it. And it's really paying dividends. And we'll see what happens next with Ash by Elegance, and Xia Brookside picks up another impressive win. And then we saw Santino Marella with the ballots, and he says Trey Miguel wins it. Ace asked by how many votes, and Santino says 60. Leon Slater then appears, so there ain't even 60 people here. Santino then said they'll have a match between the 2 top contenders next week, so Ace Austin and Trey Miguel. And the winner will face Mustafa Ali at Under Siege. Wow. That is huge. Under Siege, Mustafa Ali versus either Ace Austin or Trey Miguel. I can't wait for that. That is going to be two incredible matches, really. The first one to get the #1 contender, and then the #1 contender match will be incredible. And then Mustafa Ali Under Siege could be an absolute, again, a show stealer again. The Good Hands were next. And they took on Sami Callihan, and Callihan again this match didn't really last long. He hits a power bomb on Hotch. He hits a spear Skyler hits a spear on Sami, followed by a moonsault by Hotch. Skyler hits a slingshot spear. Hotch comes up leaping in, and Callihan levels him with a right hand, but hits a cactus driver 97 on Hotch for the win. So Callihan wins match on his return to Impact Wrestling. Fantastic. Love Sami Callihan. Can't wait to see what's next for him. Kazarian is backstage and Macklin is walking up. He says he has a proposition. He saw what happened tonight with Josh and EY, and he has a problem with Santana. Kazarian says he's the king of TNA and he doesn't trust Macklin. Macklin says he's got every night not to trust him. Macklin says he helps Kazarian with his enemies and Kazarian helps him with his. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Now, the interesting point about this bit, actually, was the match between Nick Nemeth and Eddie Edwards. Ryan Nemeth was at ringside. Nick's brother, who's I still think with AEW, he was at ringside on that match, and he gets involved actually with this. This match was a really good main event between two veterans. However, on this one, Ryan Nemeth got involved with Brian Myers on the outside of the ring. Moose hits Nemeth with the world title, and Eddie Edwards is the Boston knee party for the win. But they had such a good back and forth. Nick Nemeth even done a super kick into followed by an Olympic slam. So Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle all in one. He did actually go for the danger zone at one point, but Eddie held onto the ropes. But a really solid episode of Impact Wrestling. They're doing it all again. We've not got long for Under Siege. But there was a bit after this match, actually, when Moose attacked Nick Nemeth and Myers calls Ryan Nemeth, who's held back by security. Nick's head is held in a steel chair, and Moose hits it with another steel chair as Mike Bailey and Trent Seven run the system out the ring to end. So they've managed, looks as if they've done, and Nick Nemeth maybe taking some time away, who knows, from TNA. Was that a little injury angle to get him away? Would he come back? Lots of action. Great promos throughout the show to keep saying. The only one thing it missed was nothing to do with Jonathan Gresham this week. And I did wonder when we were going to see the next part of the Jonathan Gresham puzzle or the octopus. When will he be coming back? Maybe next week. We'll have to find out as we watch TNA again next week as they cross the line. But until then, everybody, take care and goodbye.